Okay, let me see. Okay.
Okay.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so I'm Natalie and I'm from Nanyang Girls. So thank you very much for taking your time for this precious night, like out of your usual things to do to come together over here. So maybe I can like allow you to introduce yourself a little bit. Maybe you can say something interesting about yourself. Maybe start with Paige.
Hello everybody, I'm Paige. What's interesting about me is that actually I have two dogs who are staying with me right now. On top of that, I'm actually an army officer working with the Singapore Armed Forces. Yeah.
Yihui.
Okay. Hi everyone. Yeah, my name is Yihui, and I think this reminds me of the time that we were stuck in the base camp together with nothing to do except looking at each other's faces while waiting for a suitable weather to climb. So you may see us dressed up like this, but don't worry, this is not our normal wear.
Are you sure?
Yeah, so just very glad to be here to share our experiences and reminiscence about our times, even though it's been more than 10 years since we climbed.
Okay, Esther.
Yeah. Hello, I'm Esther. I think y'all might have met me via video in the talk that I gave. So that was a couple of years ago. A lot of things have changed for me. I am now a mother of 4, and that in itself is an unclimbable mountain. So I totally understand HBL and the pains of it. But for now, it's good to think about good times and the climb that we had together. And sometimes when you've done something so amazing and so difficult, when you think back, it's very interesting to break it down and share the lessons and teach it to yourself all over again. So that's what I look forward to tonight.
Thank you. And Joanne?
Hello, I'm Joanne. I run my own adventure business. So now, at this moment, I'm really suffering. My work is non-essential. Oh no, I mean, it's not essential. Oh, so sad, right?
Yeah, I agree.
I wish adventure sports is like a essentially essential thing, that everyone should have. I think this period, my biggest motivation is on 1st of June, how do I want to present myself to my friends, or associates and everything. So I'm going to make myself fit and stay relevant.
Yes. I do think that like outdoors and this kind of like climbing kind of stuff should be essential because it's for the well-being of everybody. But okay. So
we still have 2 more teammates. They are not with us. Jane, who is the team leader, so she's currently in Sydney, and Yihui, who is not able to join us today. So that's the 6 of us. Yeah.
Okay, I will I'll do a cut out of their face and I'll put it together when we Photoshop this scene. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem. So the 6 of you, y'all attempt Everest on 2009. So the girls have watched a TED Talk video from Esther, and we have compiled some questions from the girls, and probably we'll go through some of the the questions that have been asked quite often. So the first question is because this come up very often. As we all know, like it is very dangerous to climb Mount Everest. From like Esther's talk, we have the crevasses and we have like all the different dangers, right? And it's even possible to lose a life. So why do you even want to do it? And what kind of role does this dream actually plays in your life?
Okay. I think I will start first. I believe when Jane and myself, and initially when we first formed the team, there were 4 of us. When we formed the team, our aim was to climb Everest. I think each of us, and then subsequently when we got other team members to join, having heard their motivations, I think each of us have our own motivations, our own different dreams, our own different purpose of why we want to climb Everest. For me, it started off because I read a book called Into Thin Air. It's by John Krakauer, and it talks about mountaineering disaster on Everest in 1996, where 8 climbers actually died while climbing. So while I read of the risks, in fact, most Everest accounts are about the dangers. You hardly hear about the comfortable parts. So after reading that, and I realized that there were a lot of risks on Everest, but I also realized that there was the other side, which was how Everest symbolizes excellence, it symbolizes ambition, and this ability to push yourself, the human body to see where your limits are. And I think for me at that young age, it appealed to me because I was still trying to explore what's possible, and I really like being in the outdoors just to see what the elements when they come against you, how do you react. So that was my motivation to climb Everest, and I think coupled with the risk, it becomes more of a challenge, and I think that innately excites some people. Yeah, so that was my motivation to climb Everest, or to yeah.
Just to top up with this question, right? So why Everest? Like, is it because it's like the highest mountain in the world? But we also know that Everest is not exactly the most difficult mountain in the world, but we know that it's actually the highest mountain. And actually it's also very like torturous and like, very dangerous. So, I mean, why do you want to push yourself to do that? Like to put yourself through all these torturous moments and then all these danger moments whereby you will lose your life. Like what motivation do you have to actually do this?
Do you want to answer that?
You want to continue with that?
Okay, I think at that point I didn't know that there was any mountain more difficult than Everest. Like, thankfully, I didn't hear about K2 or the rest of the other 8,000 peaks, 8,000 meter peaks. I think one of the reasons why it was Everest also is because it was during a climb when we did when I was in NUS, and it was a mountaineering group. So I was part of that CCA. And we had climbed a mountain called Island Peak in Nepal. So en route to Island Peak, I actually saw Everest in flesh. So it was a physical, I saw it, I was standing there and I saw Everest in its full glory. And I think that itself played a part because you see the mountain for real, and not just in books or TV. And then I realized, and I thought to myself, okay, how would it feel to be on the slopes? Even though the wind was blowing and the snow was blowing off the top of the mountain. But it's just this, maybe you at that point, you don't know what you're getting yourself into. Like, it's cold, but you don't know how cold. It's hot, but you don't know how hot. So there was a little bit of that naive kind of wish, I think. Perhaps if I had known the full risks, I may not have gone. I'm not sure, but yeah, I think it's a bit of the unknown as well that just made me, okay, let's try. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Maybe this question is for Esther. So because the girls have like heard your TED Talk, right? We also know at that time like you had a boyfriend and you have, all of y'all have families, right? So have you ever feared death, when you were there in the mountain? And actually it's like quite interesting, like, nowadays with COVID, right? We are always think that, when we go out and then if we contracted COVID, then we might like pass it to our family members, then we must be like responsible to our family members, and then we keep thinking about like people who love us and whom we love. So like when you climb Everest, were you ever thought of like, what if something happened to you? How will your family members feel? Or like how will you even convince them to actually allow you to go like such a dangerous mission?
Yeah, I think for this question, the truth is it's always a lot easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. I think for a lot of us, okay, at least for myself, I don't think my family knew what they were getting themselves into. And I just told them, I just 去爬山 like I don't specifically say, oh, I'm going to climb a very dangerous mountain and I die. But it's always at the back of my mind. And how I deal with it is, I mean, there is no point in worrying about what we cannot control, which is essentially the life and death, right? But there are things that are within our control, well within our control, right? Like our preparation for the climb, like how we train, how the due diligence we put into preparation for our physical condition, our, I mean, a lot of things are basically, it leads down to moment by moment due diligence in training, in getting ready for the climb. And those are the things that we can prepare. Those are the things that we can be sure that we have done our jobs. And that's what I do to convince myself that, okay, I have done all that I can, all that I possibly can. And I go without any guilt, you know. But of course, there is always that question, what if I don't come back? So a bit morbid maybe. I think I did write a letter to leave behind in my drawer before I left. But thankfully that letter was never used. And I think this might touch on another one of your questions, but maybe I just address it first, how my family actually took to me going away. They don't, I think they understand from documentaries and from news articles that the mountain is very dangerous, you know, like Everest is like, you know, there are a lot of potential areas where you can die. But I think what is overwhelmingly present and visual to them is the effort that we put in day after work, showing up for training, you know, the late meetings that we have. They see all that. They see, I think that for them is more comforting than being than believing in I mean than dwelling on the facts of life and death, the demographics that are out there. I think for them that was something that they clung on to more than, you know, the possibility that I could die. The fact that I prepared well and I'm not going on a whim. Yeah, that was how they dealt with it.
Okay, thank you. And this question is also for all of you. I think the girls were very interested, you know, after years and years of preparation and then like finally made it to the top, right? What were you all thinking when you were like standing at the top of the mountain? Like you finally like standing on top of Everest. What was going through your heads?
I'll start with that first. I think climbing Everest is a long journey. If you look at us, we took 5 years to plan for it, and then took 2 months to complete it. But before the 2 months, we had to like walk for 9 days to get to the base camp. Spend like more than 6 weeks at the base camp, up and down to the high camps and all. And the last 5 days was spent from base camp to summit. And on the summit, actually, we spent less than an hour or half an hour. Some of us only spent like 10 to 15 minutes. I was one of the privileged one who actually managed to stood there for an hour. So what was scary for me back then, at least for me, is I know that it's just half the journey. We still have to go back down to base camp. And even reaching the base camp is not final. We still have to walk up to the last village to get a flight out to Kathmandu. So when I was up there, my mind was like, okay, the task is not completed yet until each and every one of us get out of the mountain safely. Not just me, but my teammates as well. So I was happy, of course, on the summit. Then, oh, wow, okay, this is the top, all right. Top of the world feeling, all right, that's all. So now how? Go down. So the going down is the one that was like worrying me, because I'm afraid that do I have the energy I put all out to actually get to the top? Do I have enough energy to come down? So, but of course, this question already in us since day one when we decided to climb the mountain. That's why we train so hard. We put in like 7 days a week. Most of us actually train more than 7 days. Even though we say 6 weeks training, we train more than that. So this is the key reason that we understand, that we know that we have to come down safely. So that was at least what was on my mind. Yeah. Maybe Paige can add on. I waited for you to submit, right?
Yeah, that's why I have to
Because of the camera.
speak after you, right? Yeah. So I mean, my thoughts are
PG,
similar.
you speak louder.
Oh, can you hear me? Oh yeah, sorry, the other one. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay,
A
so
bit
the thing
better.
is, I follow after Joanne. So the thoughts are similar in the sense that making back safely is utmost thought on my mind. Not so much of really standing there and admiring the scene and things like that. Because it's no point you reach the top, but it's only half the journey up. Importantly, is you must live to tell the tale. Yeah, so that was really on my mind all this while from the top and all the way coming back to the base camp. Yeah.
What about
In general, all of us had the same.
all is like making your way back safely?
Yes, yeah, that's an important thing, the priority of safety. Yeah, but I guess because I'm the final team member who returned from the top down to base camp, and it also kind of like probably a, a kind of a milestone for our team that we have completed this journey so far. Yeah.
Do you all think that I could aptly summarize that actually it's not about the goal of standing at Everest, but it's the entire process of it, including the going up, the fundraising, the everything, the training, going up and coming down, like everything. It's not like, oh, I have reached Everest and that's it, thank you very much. And then you're like, wow, celebrate and everything. So it's the entire process.
I can say I mean, you have succinctly summarized everything in the way that our growth in the journey comes about having to handle all these different things, and of course having to deal with setbacks on our journey to Everest itself. Not only in terms of the training physically or things like that, but also in terms of fundraising, in terms of getting family and friend support. All of this actually play a very important part in shaping who we are right now.
Then since Paige talked about the setbacks, right? Probably this also a follow-up question to every one of you. Is there any point throughout the entire process that you really, really feel like giving up? I mean, it could be like the fundraising process, it could be the training process, or it could be while going up, or it could be like, you know, any point. When is the most actually intense point that you really felt at the brim of giving up this entire dream?
I think even before we climbed Everest in 2009, we faced that in 2008, when that was our original year that we were supposed to climb. And then we found ourselves with a shortage of funds. We had only enough money to send two and a half climbers. Yeah, and I remember it was just 2 months before we were due to leave, and we had to sit around a table to discuss what were our plans at that point, because we didn't have enough money, even though we were due to depart Singapore in 2 months. I think that was very difficult because we had to decide between, should we just send 2 climbers out of the 6, or should we postpone the climb? And I think that was one of the most critical decisions, because we decided in the end to not very it wasn't an easy decision, but we decided to postpone the climb, even though it meant that we had to put all our dreams and our plans on hold for another year, because, you know, like Esther would have gotten married earlier.
No.
Maybe she has like 6 or 8 children now.
Yeah, she could have had 5 or 6 children if not for that year of
I don't know. I could be a
postponement.
grandmother by now.
Yeah, but I realized that really helped us realize how important this dream was to us, to the extent that even though we had to postpone and put off other things that we had planned, we will still go ahead. And I think this revealed our commitment to the team, and the fact that we still wanted to climb with all 6 of us, and all 6 of us unanimously said, okay, let's just decide to postpone and let's work harder at fundraising, taking more ownership in finding the funds, sponsors, stepping up our training. So seeing the postponement as actually as an opportunity for us to better our game, to increase our chances of actually reaching the summit. Yeah. So that was, I think, one of the first challenges the team faced even before we set foot on the mountain. Yeah.
What about any incidents that's on the mountain itself, like while attempting? Was there any
Sorry.
point of time that you feel like
I'm
giving
just
up?
wiping my sweat.
Finish up, finish up. Here's a commitment.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. Just now, Joanne and Paige shared about their experience standing at the top. I think for me, my experience is quite different. Because I midway through the climb, I think on the final summit push, at the lower stages, even during the Kumbu ice fall, I was having chest pains. So when I first got it checked out, the doctor at the base camp diagnosed it as this condition called costochondritis, which is inflammation of the chest. And I think it took a while before it could really recover. So on the climb itself, it affected me so much that I had difficulty breathing, and I was constantly thinking, what should I do with it? Because if I know that if I had to push on and go up higher on the slopes, it will be more difficult because my condition may deteriorate. And to effect a rescue operation at high altitude, we all know that it is very dangerous, putting other people's lives and resources at risk. So at that point, I made the difficult decision to actually turn around. I was with the same group, in the same group as PG and Joanne. So I think when I turned around, I knew that it could be my final shot at the summit because the weather window was closing. And so it was very difficult because, if you think about like 5 years of hard work and all that you have been through, and just decide not to go for it, many questions run through my mind, like, okay, could I have continued on? What if I had tried for another half an hour or another 1 hour? But I think what made it all the more sweet was when I went back to base camp, and Yihui and Esther were the first to submit. And then the first thing that I heard Yihui said through the walkie-talkie was, she didn't say like, okay, I finally reached the top, or I made it, which would be what most people would say, I think. But the first thing she said was, Yihui, this is for you. And that was when I felt like this is really a team effort. And I think that has helped to sum up the whole experience of it, not just being at the top of the mountain, but the process leading up to it. Yeah, even though, yes, I had to struggle with my disappointment and yeah.
But now thinking back, do you think this decision is worth it?
I don't regret it because I think even turning around has taught me many things. It's not just success. That I think sometimes not being able to meet the goal will teach you more things than meeting your goal. So I'm glad for this experience of making me realize what was at stake, and I think that has made me a stronger person. And I think just defining what is success. Yeah, does it, as like Nat, what you shared earlier, is success standing on the top? Who defines the success? And I think as a team, I just trust that my teammates have we have that bond, and I think that has made me realize that I'm part of it as much as I didn't stand on the summit. Yeah, so I think I learned many more things from that experience. Yeah.
Thanks, Yihui. Okay, so for Paige, right? You were mentioning that you were army officer, and I believe like being in the, in a uniform group and in the civil service, must be like quite busy and have a lot of work commitment. So we are also curious that how will you even like find time? Like we're talking about like what 6 time training, 7 time training a week, and then plus your work, plus like your family and everything else. How do you actually juggle everything and just make sure that everything is in place? Will you ever feel like stressed out? And if you do, right, how do you actually manage?
Actually, it's I would say, I guess it's about prioritization and workfulness. Because it's not about the quantity of hours is fixed every day. Everybody just got 24 hours.
Mm.
But because at this for the past month, for the 5 years, the overriding commitment is towards climbing Everest and to make it there and back safely. So the amount of time that I have to devote for training over the rest of the things have to be put in place. Having said that, it doesn't mean that you start neglecting family relationship or friendship relationship, that kind of thing. But probably have to find other ways to make it up, or rather to experience quality family time in a different way, uh, and probably have more targeted or more purposeful time spent together rather than just fritter it away. Yeah. So in terms of training wise, you have to find. I mean, because we have to work work full time, we have to devote time for fundraising as well, and we have to devote time for training. So training probably have to take place before work or after work and on weekends. And on top of that, have to still have to find time to go and do the fundraising, speak to sponsors, call out cold calls and things like that. Yeah, so everything is like a clockwork in a way. Yeah, no time is frittered away during that 5 years.
Do you think you have find some new definition about on this word called time? Like just now I thought it was quite interesting to make sure that everybody has 24 hours. And then maybe like after this whole entire experience, right? Now you see 24 hours is actually quite different from previously and how you see the 24 hours that you used to have.
Yeah, so actually in terms of it's not only about the time, it's also about the energy. It's about resources, the resources that we have on our hands. Time is one of them. The other is energy, because even if you have time but you don't have energy to do what you need to do, it's also equal to nothing. Yeah, so it's about how we manage our energy and things like so, and also it's about worthwhileness. What is this thing that's worthwhile of your time that you decide to do this over the others? Yeah, so that is the other question that you have to ask yourself every time you do certain things. Is this worthwhile of my time here? Yeah.
All right, thank you. That's quite insightful. I think we're also quite curious, like for Paige and for every one of you, the girls did actually ask if you were to give your younger self a piece of advice on, because recently they watched this video, they will get those famous people to write a letter to their younger self, like 10年前的我, 20年前的我. Okay, maybe yours is like 5年前的你. Okay, no, like if there's any piece of advice that you give to your younger self, what would that be?
Wear more sunscreen.
It's true. I was thinking of that, Esther.
But y'all look quite okay, leh. Oh, this is the aftermath. Wow, then y'all can join beauty pageant before the climb.
Only Esther eligible.
Esther is the only team member in our team to have climbed Everest like she didn't.
Yeah.
Because I got burned so badly in New Zealand, remember? One of our training climbs, I was burned so badly. Oh my gosh, my lips were like sausages, sausage. Then like skin cancer, like all red and raw. So I really slathered on the sunblock on Everest
She left the
and
mountain.
subsequent mountains.
Left the mountain
Yeah.
and climbed it. So a lot of them, our Sherpas were teasing her. So, did you climb? Were you the one?
Oh, but I'm
I
surprised.
climbed with umbrella.
No sponsorship find you after that. Like
Oh,
the
no.
whatever, there's no sunscreen like sponsorship or anything to come and look for you. Like Well, maybe after
Yeah,
you
they should,
climb,
they
yeah,
should.
Yeah.
yeah, we should like introduce you to their sunscreen product. The rest of you,
Yeah.
any advice to your younger self?
No lah, my advice is not wear more sunscreen.
Hey, but it can be a good advice. Yeah, it can be a good advice.
Aiyo. No. Okay. But I think my advice to my younger self would be that even though you might not be able to see the success yet, how do I put it? Sometimes the brightest sunshine lies just beyond the darkest cloud, seriously. Like when we postpone our climb, we already thought, wow, really jialat already. It's like, can't even find the money to climb, put 4 years of our lives on hold and nothing. That was like the crux of it already, and yet nothing. It's like we had everything, we were all prepared physically already, but we just lacked the money. This is insane. So, but yet, things will turn around for us when we soldiered on. And I think sometimes really the success is just around the corner, at the darkest corner. You just cannot see it. So I think if I were to write a letter to my younger self, I would tell myself that. Yeah, on to you guys.
Right. For me, if I will tell myself to pay more attention to the people around me. I think during the climbing phase, right, at 5 years, looking back, I think I could have done better by pay more attention to the people around me, like my families and my friends. There's a scary part about being too focused. When you're too focused with your own target and your own goal, you tend to forget about the people that's around you who support you. So one of the questions that I've been asking myself ever since we came back and then we start giving sharings, right? So you hear different perspectives from my own teammates as well. So I did ever ask myself, what have I done to console or to support Yihui when she was not well at the base camp? We were the 5 others who were the closest to her, other than of course our team coach, our team manager, Kim Boon. He was there as well. So there were 6 of us with her. So what have I done as a team member? How did I show concern to her? It was the question I asked myself. So I realized that this is something that I couldn't ask myself, I couldn't answer. So maybe I didn't do it enough. Yeah. So if I were to give myself advice to my younger self, I would say that pay more attention to the people around me. Aside from achieving my own goal, trying to push for my own best, don't forget the people around us. Yeah.
Don't worry, Joanne, I felt your love. I think that's a very good question, because I think one advice I will give to my younger self is to not to be afraid to ask for help, even though you may be put in a position where you are looked to give help. So I think Jane and I, we were the leaders and the co-leaders of the team, and we were quite young then. Although I hope you can't tell from the difference. We were still in university, so really very young without much experience, and suddenly having to trust into this position where we had to lead the team, and we had people who were much older than us, like Joanne, although you can't tell, but she came in with a lot of much more experience, more than a decade of experience in the mountains compared to us. And sometimes I felt like, okay, just because we were the leaders, we cannot show our weakness, or we cannot show that we don't know. So we just kind of went through it. But I realized if I were to relive those times, I may be more vulnerable to share some of my weakness and to be more open. Of course, there is a line, because people also need to have trust and confidence in you as a leader. But having I think the authenticity and the honesty to share some of your fears, I think it's okay. I don't think all leaders need to show that they have it all. And I think during those younger times, we did make some mistakes, especially in people management, when people had to leave the team, the way we facilitated that, I don't think personally, I don't think I did very well, because you kind of like sweeping things under the carpet. And yeah, so I think if one advice I were to give my younger self would be to not to be afraid to ask for help, not just from mentors, but from my fellow teammates. Yeah.
For me, actually, after hearing all my teammates sharing, it gives me some.
PG.
Yeah.
Can you speak a bit louder?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So for me, I mean, after hearing all my teammates sharing, I learned a lot more things. 10 years, I mean, how many years now? More than 10 years later, still learning a lot of things. So one of the most valuable things I learned was that if you have a chance to do anything with a team of people, go and do it. Because when I first wanted to climb Everest, I didn't really cross my mind to think when I'm going to do it or how am I going to do it. It's just that a faithful watching of the Prime Minister Lee National Day rally speech, I got to know about this team, and it kind of sparked off something that I wrote down years ago about wanting to climb Everest, and I followed that. So probably one of the things that I would share with people of the past or younger self would be, if you find something that kind of sparks certain things in you, follow that. You may not know where it will lead you to. You may not know at every corner or every turn what you will learn along the way, the people you'll meet, and the lessons you're going to learn, and the growth you're going to experience. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's quite inspiring. And yeah, I will end with that. But maybe you can share a little bit about yourself now, like before, after, since 2009 till now. Before you attempt Everest and after you submitted Everest and come back, and then now you're like back to yourselves, like your normal life. How do you unpack this whole thing? Like has this Everest been like a dream? What are the actually changes that you have seen and then you actually carried through your life even till now, like before and after? Or is it still the same? It's just like one part of like your life? Or do you think that there's something has actually stirred inside you that made you who you are now?
Maybe I start first lah. Okay, I think back then to us, Everest was the mountain, right? It was the mountain that we have paused our lives for. We have like put our lives on hold for. But looking back today, I realized that Everest is but a mountain. It is but a mountain in our life. I mean, in my life, and there are many more mountains to climb. Some taller, some tougher, some, so. I think that is very useful for me in the sense there is no ultimate goal. Maybe talk about eternity and heaven and hell, but there's no ultimate fundamental goal. Like I need to get that position in that company. Like once I get there, I'll be fine. It's never going to be fine. You're always going to be unsatisfied. There's always going to be a discontent in you if you're someone who strives for something. If you always pursue something and to improve yourself. So there will never be your whole life. I mean, my whole life is a learning journey. If I put myself out there to continue to improve myself. So I think the biggest takeaway for me is Everest is but a mountain, and that the next thing is that even the biggest mountain can be broken down into small steps to climb. It's about taking that one step every day, in being faithful to your goal, in paying due diligence to reach that goal. So that's something that I still apply to this day.
You
guys? 我讲完了哈，你们 I speak for all of us.
I think having climbed Everest, it has taught me a lot of things. I think we have more or less like shared a lot of things that we have learned. But I thought it was quite pressurizing to be known as, oh, she has climbed Everest. I actually didn't quite like that introduction. because like what very similar to what Esther said, it's just a mountain. I think anyone who wants to climb Everest or one of the toughest mountain or whatever, it's likelihood to be doable. Of course, we don't talk about the potential of dying. All right, so a lot of things is possible if you put your heart into it. So having climbed Everest is not exactly it's not going to be the achievement of my life. So I feel very pressurized. I find it very difficult to hold it when someone said the first line they introduced me is, "Oh, she climbed Everest." Actually, I thought, to me, it's like, what's the big deal? You know, there are many others who have climbed it. We are not I'm not the only one, but the only thing that I felt proud about is I climbed with a team. Really, really. So the teamwork itself taught me a lot of things. Yihui mentioned just now that they are the youngest. In fact, in the 6 of us, the 2 of them are still the youngest in the team. All right, so I am the oldest in the team. I find what I learned throughout this journey is never close off your mind. Never think that just because you're a little bit more experienced, just because I'm a little bit older, and that means I carry something more than the rest of the people. But it's not that way. So I learned a lot from them. I learned a lot from the young ones, from technologies to the latest pop, you know. But then, of course, their management style, the way they guide themselves, the principle that they had. Even now, until now, when we discuss in group chats, my teammates forever continue to offer their perspective, which I am still learning. Yeah. So I think then and now, I'm still learning from my teammates, and I want to continue to keep this relationship alive with them.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
I think one of the things that I carried with me even from Everest and before Everest is that, I mean, a lot of people ask how has life changed after Everest, right? But I think the answer that some of us always give is that we have changed our lives for Everest. To climb Everest, we have to have discipline, training 6 times a week, sometimes up to twice a day, waking up at 5 o'clock. And I think I brought some of that discipline through even today. So obviously I don't train 6 times a week. I don't wake up at 5, but I still...
She's training to wear down jacket now in Singapore.
But I realize the importance of discipline in anything that we do, be it for work or for your hobby, for something that you care about. I think this concept of discipline, I believe strongly that it comes before motivation. So you will never feel like you want to run, or you never feel like you need to exercise, but having the discipline will make you put effort into the thing every day until you like it. So I realized having this discipline is one of the main things that I took away from Everest. I think the second one is that I think when I made the decision to turn around, I also realized that, like what Esther said, you know, Everest is just the mountain. It is not the mountain. It is just one of the things that I was doing, and I don't think I was prepared to lose my life then. Even though we all say, yeah, we put our heart, soul, mind into it and we train. But at the end of the day, I wasn't prepared to die there. And I'm glad that decision revealed that, because I don't think it's worth it for any one of us to lose our lives on Everest in that way. And I realized because of that, it made me accept things. I think even after Everest, to know that there is a time and purpose in everything that we do, and to accept that there are things that are beyond our control, and to learn how to deal and move on after that. So I think that lesson was the biggest takeaway for me in learning how to deal and accept disappointments. Yeah. PG.
Okay, so for me, I mean, I share the same sentiments of the rest lah. Everest could just be one of the things that I do in my life. While it has definitely been a part of my life, but I wouldn't say that it is the only thing that I'm going to do in my life as well. And also realize that I can be so ordinary that after Everest, I can just leg back to my before Everest self. Yeah, because I don't have to train 6 days a week. I don't have to go DMI every weekend. I don't- I don't- I don't- yeah. So I realized that I can also become back to my pre-Everest days. But I also realized that I can be at the Everest during Everest how I'm going to be, yeah, if I want to be. And I also realized that over this over these decades is that about how we define ourselves. I also feel the same kind of pressure whereby there's this expectations, or rather maybe I felt other people's expectations of who am I after knowing that I climb Everest. So I would rather people know who am I rather than what I did to define who I am. But to really know who I am as a person, than to, because I climb Everest, therefore there is this expectation. I thought that they have this expectation. I mean, probably they don't have, but yeah. Then again, I ask myself, could it be expectation of myself then? And what does it define how does it define me? Yeah. So so I come to a space whereby follow joy. Yeah. Follow joy at which phase of my life, what makes me joyful, follow that. Rather than to have to keep thinking that, oh, because I climb Everest, therefore I have to find something else to always challenge the boundaries and things like that. Follow what's joyful for me at this moment and go for it. That probably would be more important to me right now. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, for a moment, I thought Joy is your friend. Follow Joy.
Joy is Esther's daughter.
Okay, thank you very much for all your sharing. I think we have come to an end, and I truly very inspired by the nuggets of wisdom that you guys shared. I mean, I've while I was listening, I felt like my heart actually really stirred a lot, and I can really, yeah, I just, because like for layman people, like so-called layman and normal people like us, right, we sometimes we look at Everest, then we think, wow, y'all climb Everest, wow, y'all like famous, wow, y'all must be like so damn good, or like this kind of thing must be like only y'all can do it. But I think which I think you have already also mentioned, that if each and every one of us really put in that discipline and the effort to really do something, whether is it Everest or not, we will be able to achieve it, even though it is seemingly very difficult. Which I think sometimes people, when they look at you guys, they will think that, wow, it is so unattainable. I think in the very first place, when I told the girls about, our Singaporean ladies climb Everest, they were like, huh, wow, really? That kind of thing. So I think you have proven to many younger generations and to many like my students, that actually everything is possible if you really put your heart into it. Maybe just the last bit, anything to tell my students before we say goodbye, like any words of encouragement, especially like during this COVID period, or anything that you want to tell them, share with them, or quote.
Something for them. I think this saying, probably some of you have heard before, and maybe the girls as well, about time. There's a saying that in Chinese, 时间就像女人的乳沟，急 you know. So I want the girls to think about it. We have this COVID period, this entire circuit breaker. After this whole thing, what do you see yourself as? So I think when I first started this conversation, I was saying that at the end of the day, 1st of June, I don't want to like people to see me. How come you put on so much weight? How come you so this is not what I want. So I'm going to work towards something that I want. So fitness is one thing, and of course knowledge. So my message to the girls is, yeah, time is how you manage it. Like I said, 急急下就有, you know.
Okay, maybe for me, I don't know, this is not really related to the COVID period, but more of, I mean, are these, I don't know about my teammates, maybe they were very sad in school, but I was really a very average student. I was never like a superstar, head prefect, student leader, that kind. I think sometimes when you're an average person in school, it doesn't mean that you cannot do something extraordinary later on in life. And I think a lot of us, we just sail through school, not really having any big dreams or whatever yet. but the word is yet. And I think that this is the word yet that I want them to carry with now, because there will be a then, you know. When the then comes, you know that your yet years have prepared you for it. Yeah, and that's what I tell my girls too.
I think it's important for each of us to discover our gifts that's already within us. To really spend the time to get to know ourselves, what makes us tick, explore what interests us, because every one of us is unique and therefore possess and predisposed with certain talents and gifts that you only have. But it's up to us to discover in each of us. So that's why it comes to a point whereby what defines success? Actually, what defines your happiness? Because happiness probably is the way to success, to whatever we define as it is. Yeah, so importantly is to spend the time to go and explore within yourself what the gifts and talents, not really need to compare with your peers or your friends and things like that. Find out what makes you joyful and follow that.
Yeah, we always sometimes end our sharing. I'm not sure if Esther shared that in her TED talk, to think about what is your own personal Everest. I think for us, yeah, it was climbing that mountain. It was 5 years of work, hard work. It was sacrifices that we had to make and all that. But I think that was also because we took time to think about what we wanted. We articulated it, and we found a team of friends, teammates to do it together with us. So that helped us to go forth and bring it to completion. So maybe our encouragement to the girls will be to think about what is their own personal Everest. And even during this period of COVID, it is a time of waiting, it is a time of preparation. But I think I'm sure that even during this time, they can be making use of it to be more reflective and to think about how can they improve themselves or to aim for that next goal that they want. Yeah.
Can I add on a bit?
Sure.
I think the fact that all the students, all of you are from Nanyang Girls, it means something already. At least in my impression as an outsider, someone who can academically get into this school, that means you are somebody. You have done something correctly to allow yourself to be in this school now. So I think instead of thinking like too proud about it, probably you want to take it as an advantage. Now, then what can you do more? What more can you do since you already have a certain level of achievement, right? Because I think to get into this school is not easy. And I talk about academics. Actually, Esther mentioned about like she's not like academically very good. Actually, I'm worse. I didn't do well in my study at all. All right, which I regretted. Okay, I regretted. All right, so I'm learning. That's why I'm still learning now. So if you don't have to like learn at the age of 50 simple things, so do it now. All right.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for all your time. I think we really enjoy all of you here, and I think it's quite nice to like have a mini gathering over Zoom, and then like to really see each other's face. I'm not too sure how often you all meet, but it was quite nice to like have all of you here together. So thank you very much, and I will just leave all your words of wisdoms with the girls for them to digest during the next 1 month of the holiday. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank
So,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
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 Bye.